10% of Vermonters live in food-insecure households, meaning they don't have regular access to nutritious food. Can reducing the amount of food that is wasted in Vermont also help reduce food insecurity?
I don't think that people who can't afford decent food should be eating food waste. They should not be eating the food that other people don't want to eat. They should have the same access to food that everybody has.
So what are some efforts currently in place to help people who are food insecure gain access to nutritious food?
So we run the largest food shelf in Addison County, and we typically serve around 650 people a month.
Hope strives to make the food shelf as accessible as possible.
Someone comes in, we ask, how can we help you? It's not such a long, arduous process. Usually we can get them in, help them with what they need, especially when it comes to the food shelf, which is a really nice thing to see. And so what we'll do is we'll do this client intake, and then we have a volunteer who will take them through the food shelf. And a lot of the work that gets done on the food shelf side is because we have so many dedicated volunteers, and so they'll take a client through, and based off of their family size, they go to different sections of the food shelf, and then they're able to pick out a certain number of items. And it's sort of typical to like a grocery store. You've got like your canned vegetables in one section, you've got your frozen meat in another section.
Hope's food shelf serves a variety of people.
Working at the front desk, I see people who come in and they say, it's the end of the month, I've used up my SNAP, or I've used what I can of my WIC. This is sort of just getting through that last week or two. But then we have other people where it's more scheduled. They say to themselves, every month in the middle of the month I'm going to come to Hope, and that just kind of bolsters my grocery shopping purchases. So it really does vary. That we have folks who we might see like once every 4 months, because it's just the cycle of their life that they hit a particular hard point. But then we also see folks who do rely on it pretty regularly as their main source of food.
It's a major problem in that we waste a tremendous amount of food. The estimates are somewhere between 30–40% in the United States of food is being wasted, which to me is important not just because of the food being wasted, but because of all the resources that are being used to grow that food or catch that food if it's seafood, and to process it and get it to stores. And to have that be wasted, not be eaten, is a major problem.
Our state produces so much food, whether that's at a grocery store or whether that's a local farm. And I think having a better perception of, farmers are putting in so much work and so much time and so much labor into, what they, what is their livelihood, and having these kind of standards of quality and mostly superficial standards, I think can, it benefits us in that we're able to provide nutritious fruits and vegetables, but I think also it needs to go into the perceptions that people have of like what's edible food and what's good food. And so I think that's something that, I try and show people more and more, is that, a twisted carrot tastes the same as the carrot you'd buy at a grocery store, and just like really changing people's perceptions on what good food is.
So our end statement says that Middlebury Co-op member owners, customers, and the community benefit from healthy foods, a vibrant local economy, environmentally sustainable and energy efficient practices, and cooperative democratic ownership. We also added education as an ends. That was added later. I represent the co-op at the Addison County Hunger Council. So the Addison County Hunger Council is a group of individuals in Addison County that are interested in alleviating food insecurity, and we meet quarterly and talk about different issues related to food insecurity in our area and try to come up with plans on how to tackle them. And so that would be one way that we work with a number of different organizations on food insecurity. We also daily have visits from CVOEO. Donna comes daily to pick up food I hate to call it waste, but basically food that can still be consumed by other people, but we can't sell for various reasons. And so last year she picked up over 7 tons of food from the co-op to go and serve at, to folks at the food shelf. We also work with other organizations like HOPE pretty often on food insecurity issues. Like we'll do a rally for change that benefits HOPE and CBOEO a couple times a year. And basically that's where the cashier might say, would you like to round up your purchase today? And if you round up to the nearest dollar, all of those proceeds go to HOPE and CBOEO. Sometimes we'll have big events like the Empty Bowl Dinner is a charity dinner that we host once a year to raise money for the food shelves. But when you have a big event like that, inevitably you have food left over, and because of the way it's been out already, you can't necessarily pass it on to other humans. And so there's barriers like that, but there's good reasons for that. Food safety regulations and that sort of thing. And I think the same goes for the deli. Like we just recently relaunched a hot bar, and you want the hot bar to be full and abundant with food all the way up until 4 o'clock when it closes, so that people don't feel like they're scraping the bottom. But at the same time, you know that once 4 o'clock hits, because that food's already been sitting out and uncovered, it can't necessarily go to other humans. And so that goes to farmers, and so at least someone is eating it, or it's getting composted. But those things.
Our partnership with the Vermont Food Bank, where they work with local grocery stores, where we can come and pick up stuff that, you know, they had to follow the sell-by date label, or, you know, it just wasn't selling enough, so they're going to give it to us. And so I think we have a lot of those partnerships that are really well formed and work really well for us.
College dining halls are another large source of food waste in the United States. Is there anything unique about college students and college dining halls that contributes to food waste? Chef and Assistant Director of Dining at Middlebury College, Bo Cleveland, shares some insight.
I think when we poll the students, they are frustrated with the amount of food that winds up in our compost buckets. I think maybe part of the problem is just timing. The students are so scripted in what they have to do on a daily basis, hour by hour, day by day, minute by minute. And so our dining halls are saturated. Even though they have the opportunity to eat in any dining hall they want, we currently don't have the number of seats to seat all the students if they chose to eat. So obviously some rotate through depending upon their class schedule, but some days classes are all out at the same time, and they all go back at the same time. So consequently we have this influx of so many students who are trying to find a place to sit down and can't. And so I think that impacts the amount of food that they take, because they know they might not be able to make it back, you know, into the line. I don't think there is that connection between cost and hunger. Perhaps there's the sentiment that they feel like they've paid for the food already, so the fact that they're wasting it, maybe they haven't had to pay for food for themselves, or come from an environment where they were living on a budget.
What about food that never gets taken at the end of the night?
We do have food at the end of the day, but the sanitation regulation doesn't allow you to reuse food that's already been out on the line because of the potential of cross-contamination. But if food has been held in a temperature-controlled environment, whether that's hot or cold, then you do have that opportunity to repurpose that at a later date. Some things don't reheat well, fresh veggies, for example, but soups, stews, casseroles, proteins, those do. And if there was a mechanism for us to handle that food, repackage it, and then connect with a distribution side that could take it places, I think that might be something that could work.
But Cleveland understands that not everything can be saved.
Some things just aren't salvageable, and those do get wasted for sure.
That's where Middlebury's compost and recycling comes in. Food and other items that cannot be immediately repurposed are composted or recycled rather than sent to the landfill.
We compost all of our waste that then goes into a facility, turns into compost that then gets used here at the college campus. We recycle all of our available recyclables.
Vermont's universal recycling law that they've put into place. The idea is that over time you'll see more of these different groups that create waste, whether they're a high school or a college to a small restaurant to an individual household, and trying to divert a lot of that waste from ending up in a landfill. And especially when it comes to perfectly wholesome food, how can we get that to people who can benefit from this food? So I think we have a lot of those partnerships that are really well formed, and I think now it's going to have to evolve more and more as this kind of just becomes the letter of the law, that you can't really be throwing away food into your garbage and you have to find a different way to get rid of that. I think it'll be about creating a better understanding of how do you donate quality food to a food shelf.
So we have, as part of Act 148, there's a mandate now that by 2020 there will be no food waste allowed in any landfills in the state. So as part of that, we've been in compliance by composting here on campus. In addition to that, we also have a food donation program that started. It's been going on for probably about 10 years now, and it's definitely evolved over time. So started with really just making donations during major school closings. That might be a break or summer vacation, and it's kind of evolved into a more regular donation cycle. So now we'll donate on a weekly basis.
If food can be repurposed in whatever way, that would be a good thing. So that's first, and then for food to be fed to livestock, like the scraps that people can't eat, for that to go to pigs, wonderful, or chickens. Both are pretty good at processing food scraps. And then the pigs and chickens can be eaten by people, of course. So it comes back into the human food supply. And then for it to be going into compost, which again can be re-entering the human food supply by enriching soil, great. So virtually all the food that's wasted now could be repurposed, and a great deal of it could be repurposed in ways that improves the food system.